Chapter 13, Part 4. Does it sink or does it float? Thinking and floating can be summed up in three simple rules. The first rule, an object with more dense than the fluid in which it is immersed will sink. Second rule, an object less dense than the fluid in which it is immersed will float. Rule 3, an object which density equal to the density of the fluid in which it is immersed neither sinks nor floats. The buoyancy force on a submerged object depends on its volume only. Accordingly, a smaller object displaces less water, so a smaller point force acts on it. A larger object will displace more water, so a larger point force acts on it. The conclusion for this is that the submerged object volume, not its weight, the one which will determine point forces. Whether an object sinks or floats, or does neither, depend on both its point force, which is up, and its weight down. Any object will suffer from two forces. The first force down, which is the weight according to the gravity, and the second one, which is the point force up, because of the Archimedes Principle. When the point force is exactly equal to the weight of the completely submerged object, then the object weight must equal to the weight of the displaced water accordingly. Since the volumes of the object and the displaced water are the same, the density of the object must be equal to the density of the water. Does it sink or does it float? The wood floats because it is less dense than water, while the rock sinks because it is denser than water. But the fish neither rises nor sinks because it has the same density as water. The fish is at one with the water. It doesn't sink or float. The density of the fish equal to the density of the water. But if the fish were somehow floated up, it would be less dense than water and would float to the top. But if the fish swallowed a stone and become more dense than water, it would sink to the bottom. The density of the submarine is controlled by the flow of water into and out of its balance tanks to achieve the desired average density. A fish regulates its density by expanding or contracting an air sac that changes its volume. It moves upward by increasing its volume and downward by contracting its volume. Also, a crocodile increases its density when it is swallow stones to swim lower in the water and expose less of itself to its victim. Let us have this example. When a submerged submarine expels water from its bulk tanks, its density will decrease, obviously, and it will not increase. And the answer is decreases. Another example. Does it sink or does it float? The crocodile on the left is less dense than the crocodile on the right. Why? Because its belly is not full of stone. Another example. If a fish makes itself more dense, it will sink. If it makes itself less dense, it will rise. In terms of point force, why is this? The obvious answer that when the fish increases its density by decreasing its volume, it displaces less water. So the buoyant force will decrease. When the fish decreases its density by expanding, it displaces more water, and the buoyant force obviously will increases. Check your understanding. What are the 3 rules of thinking and floating?